So good morning. My name is Craig Blanchett, and it's such a exciting time of the year. Every year for the last few years, we have gotten together once a week, and we pull out our training manual. This is how to feel great, basically, how to make your body work good and feel great. And so this is Dr. A's Habits of Health. I don't know how he came up with that term, but it seems like healthy habits seem to be a good thing. So every week for the next 26 weeks, well, it'll be 25 after today, we're going to go through a chapter in Dr. A's Habits of Health. So if you're watching this on podcast or listening to it on podcast, you can tune in each week and there'll be a new episode. There'll be 26 in a row. This will be hosted, for those that are listening live, on, we call it the Healthy Huddle. So it won't be the normal coaches page. It's a different podcast called the Healthy Huddle. And then at the bottom of the hour, we're going to stop this recording and we'll switch to our health coach discussions and conversation. But so what I want you to do, if you're watching this live or if you're listening to this later, your obligation is to read the chapter ahead of time. If it's the second week of the year, we're on chapter 2. If it's the third week of the year, we're on chapter 3. And I imagine you can anticipate what the fourth week would bring us. And so we're going to go through this 26 weeks in a row. And your job is to read the lesson sometime during the week. Or it's not really a lesson, it's a chapter. And then highlight things. We call those noteworthy. They're worthy of taking a note about it. And then bring that to our meeting on Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to do a discussion. Hopefully I get to learn from you. You get to learn from me. We get to learn from each other. Because the habits of health are useless if they're only in our brains. If we don't act, if we don't do them, it just doesn't provide any value. So health is something you do. It's not only something you know. And so that's what we're going to do here every week for the next 26 weeks. And so you're all invited back. If you are listening to this on podcast later, you can tune in live. You got to go to on Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific, and you go point your web browser to zoom.us. And then you go up to the top and it says host a meeting or join a meeting. You want to click join a meeting. And the meeting ID is 503-974-1671. All right. And so at this point here, we're going to toss this out to the gang here. We've got quite a group here that's joined us this morning for our Habits of Health. One of the things too that I want you guys to all think about, what if you knew somebody that was not as healthy as they wanted to be, and they were searching to find, to find some health tips, to learn something about feeling better in their bodies. And you invited them to go online and buy the book, buy the Habits of Health book, and tune in with us each week. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe they didn't even buy the book. They just tuned in and listened. So I dare you to invite somebody. I dare you to invite 5 people this week to come in and listen to this. Because how are we going to build community if we don't invite people? And how are we going to get healthy unless we learn together, right? We got to practice these things. So that's my intro. So this basic, I'm going to kind of give a premise of what this chapter offers. I also see that we have some, Victoria was on telephone only last week. She's here in person on video. And Robin as well is maybe here for the first time, and I'm not sure. But I just want second time, great. And so we're going to go through this. When we switch to the next segment, we'll do an intro for you, and we'll get to know you a little bit, where you're from and who invited you, that kind of thing. But for now, I want you to have your fingers on your mute button, or unmute, if you will. And if you have an answer or a highlight that you want to share, you can also raise your hand. And to do that, you go down to where it says participants. And then at the top of the participant screen, it says raise hand. And so you can raise your hand. But the premise of this particular chapter is that Dr. Ace, he has the idea it's not your fault. And he doesn't mean you don't need to take responsibility for where you're at, but he's saying that there's some things that you may not even have known about that are affecting your health. And so when he says it's not your fault, it's sort of the genetics that all human beings have, and that combined with the idea, the programming of our genetics, combined with the ideas of businesses that produce food products, the lifeblood of those businesses is cash, right? And the more lifeblood you have, in other words, cash, the more that entity thrives, right? And so the food industry is designed to give you as much of what you want as you'll pay for. And so they do certain things to make those food items more appealing, more attractive, more tasty, more scrumptious, right? And so we buy more. Well, it's not evil. That's their lifeblood. And when a company goes bankrupt, it dies. So it doesn't. Strong companies have a good profit, and that means they're thriving. And so we have our genetics, and we also have this food industry that's designed to give us as much as we're willing to buy so it can thrive as much as possible. And so those are kind of the premises of the idea that those are the things that are happening that we didn't really have a lot to do with, but we have to live in that world in these bodies with that kind of environment around us. And now we get to take responsibility for the things we can control. And one of those is practicing, obviously, the habits of health. So another thing that I wanted to say here is on page 6. So if you want to turn over to page 6, it has high fructose corn syrup. And high fructose corn syrup is when the food industry or when culture kind of switched from normal fat, today we would call it high fat foods. We had this idea that fatty foods was making us fat. So we took all the fat out. Well, when we did that, we took all the flavor went with it, right? The fat is in the flavor. Just eat some bacon and you'll know what I'm talking about. So when they took out the fat, they took out the flavor, and they said, uh-oh, these things don't taste so good. So they added in sugar. Well, one of the simplest ways to add in sugar was a refined processing of sugar that makes it high fructose corn syrup. So it's super sweet. Now there's some downsides to it as well. And so that Dr. A talks about that on page 6. And then you can see also some trends that are happening on page 9. And those trends are on the bottom left. We all start, we're all born, we're all created, we all come off the assembly line, if you will, pretty healthy. Like little babies, they're pretty new. I mean, their joints all work and their skin's all good, and they're just, the most of the time they're pretty healthy. And what happens is as your body ages, it starts to wear out, and you can slow down. It's like a car. If you park a car in the sun, that car is going to be toast in half the time that if you park it in the garage, because the sun ages it more quickly. Well, it's the same thing with our habits. When we do certain things, and these aren't crazy things either. They're things like drinking water. No, drinking water, right? Or sleep. I know, I said the S word, sleep. Little things like that over time help you to stave off the biological decay or aging process. So you can get a year older and biologically stay the same. Pretty crazy. So these are some of the ideas that he talks about that over time, if you're practicing the habits of health every day, not just when you want to lose weight, but every day, the long-term effects of that are powerful in a person's life. So Those are the kind of the basic premises. I want to toss it out to you for comments on anything I said, for highlights that you've highlighted. If you did highlight something, tell us the page that it's on so we can go there and share it with you. And the first taker I have today is Daniela. Let me unmute you. There you go. You're good. Oh, I'll let you unmute yourself.
So this may sound funny, but this chapter is really exciting to me to be back at, because 4.5 years ago, when I was started as a client, I'm still a client, but when I started as a client, this book, like, I devoured it. I ate it alive. It was so valuable to me. I'd not seen anything quite as balanced as this book. So a couple of things stood out to me then, and I see them written in my margins here, and I just thought that they were kind of fun. And that is that high fructose corn syrup, when it's mixed with salt, becomes an addictive type of food for us. And the food industry does that frequently, like in ketchup and things like that, particularly condiments that we use, but also in other foods. Also, it becomes fat in our body. It decreases our ability to inhibit hunger, and is addictive, which I said. And the other thing that really struck me, this to me was major, that in just 1 week of the way we eat, so if we eat poorly for 1 week, our liver begins to show signs of damage. Like, a physician can test that and actually see the difference in 1 week. And that's just phenomenal. So at the same time, in 1 week, you can start correcting those liver levels as well. And that's pretty exciting. And so when we talk about every choice that we make is a choice for health or a choice toward disease, and we get to decide if most of our choices are going to help the organs in our body or destroy them. So those are the things that were really exciting for me then.
You know, I love what you said there, because I often think, is this going to make me fat or make me thinner? That's pretty much when I'm about to eat something. Am I going to gain weight after this or not? But if you think about, will this nourish my organs? I don't think about my organs very often. Who here thinks about the organs a lot? I don't know. A few, maybe. Okay, some of you do. The last time I thought of my pancreas, it's been years. It probably misses me. But I think maybe about my heart a little bit. But it's just, I just don't really think about those things that are sort of in there somewhere. I just think about the reflection, about how my body kind of feels. And so, but it's interesting that what we eat, so that's why after you've lost your weight, if you start eating high glycemic foods, and I want Betsy to speak on this a little bit, if you go eat high glycemic foods, but you still try to keep your calories down, there's still consequences. High glycemic is high glycemic, and inflammation is yucky. Right? Kim or Betsy, I know we talked about this week, and so I'm sure you have some things to share on that, but tell us about your recent experience.
Yeah, I took my my eating style, my nutrition over the holidays, and turned it into a science experiment to make it a positive instead of a negative. Didn't eat poorly compared to the old Betsy, but didn't eat really like the newer Betsy. And so, gained 3 or 4 pounds and really feel kind of crummy. And I realized I didn't eat that many more calories than I normally ate. The difference was I was eating high glycemic foods. And guess what? I gained weight, even though my calorie intake and my activity level was pretty high over the couple of weeks of the holidays. But I actually gained weight, and I'm hoping most of it's water weight, but it definitely, I don't feel as good. I don't think my skin looks as good. And so I kind of turned that into a little experiment, and it's like, okay, guess what? Back to being serious, getting focused again, glycemically balancing my meals, and seeing thank you, Daniela, for what you shared, because it's like, I thought, my poor liver for the last 2 weeks. So time to turn my liver and take care of my little liver. I'm going to think of it as in a little baby cradle, and that I'm taking care of it for a while. But it really was quite dramatic to me, the difference of, and like I said, I wasn't eating sweets and chips and stuff like that. I just wasn't focusing truly on my health.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I think we should do a bumper sticker that says, before you eat that, think about your liver. Think that'll go well.
In all your organs, right? Like I think it was Dr. A that said, when we don't drink enough water, right? Our body ends up recycling the liquid that is in it because it needs it, so it can't flush the toxins out. So now think about your kidneys and, all your organs, really.
So nice subliminal. You just had Martin, Debbie, and Alex and Betsy drink. Nice job. I saw you. I got you. Okay, Kim Stewart, I'll unmute you, and you're up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just like Daniela, this chapter, it makes me actually kind of emotional because I started reading this when I started on my first week of my program, and I just remember the hope that it gave me immediately. And I have things highlighted and underlined on pages 10 and 11. And I'm sorry, I'm surprised these emotions came back, but all those years, just realizing somebody put into words what I tried to tell my doctors I felt like I was experiencing, and my nutritionist, and all the diets and everything, just that every time we go on a diet, our metabolism shuts down and lowers. And this comment, it says on page 11 at the top, after a while, your food intake just can't be lowered enough to have any effect on weight loss. And that's where I was at. And just the amount of hope that came in reading this was incredible to me, that, oh my gosh, somebody gets me, somebody understands what I've been trying to tell everybody, what I had been experiencing. And this, I knew on some level right then, even though I didn't know on the scale yet, I thought maybe this will be different this time.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll just let that sink in. We get to be part of something great. That's something great. That we get this hope inside of us that we don't have to health coach, we get to. And we get to choose to be part of something great. Thank you for being part of this, Kim. That's great stuff. Diane, you're up. Let me unmute you. There you go.
I just did it. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of misinformation, even in the nutrition world, which I was a big part of, not so much anymore, but I managed to stay a little bit in it to keep up my credentialing. But I was on the phone recently with a friend of mine who's a dietitian who's very overweight, has ended up in the hospital twice with colitis and something else, itis, inflammation. And her thinking is, a calorie is a calorie, and we know that's not true anymore. So, it's a little frustrating at times, and a lot of our clients are coming to us with that kind of knowledge. So we have a big job ahead of us, really, in helping people break out of their concepts. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I love this book because it has, really great up-to-date information that a lot of people don't know, and even out at the University of Toronto, that one study where they looked at everyone ate the same number of calories, but they spread it out differently. And the people who ate more often lost weight or more weight. I can't remember which one it was. So there's a lot to metabolism, is what I'm saying. So
it sure is.
Yeah.
Victoria, I'll unmute you. You're up. You had your hand.
Hi. Yeah, I did waving. Hello. One of the things that, first of all, Kim, I really empathize with what you're saying, because I'm not going to have the dramatic weight loss that you've experienced, but I've had those same emotions, and I feel so cheated by the food industry. after reading this chapter yesterday to prepare for today, I went and looked up high fructose corn syrup, and I found a series from University of California, San Francisco, which is a high-end, they're really leading when it comes to nutrition in the United States. And they were talking about how people are experiencing fatty liver, which is basically only found in alcoholics. But they're finding that people who are consuming high fructose corn syrup are experiencing that same liver disease. And so I'm wondering how long, I mean, Daniela, maybe you would know more about it because you kind of spoke to it, but how long does it take to actually cure yourself or heal yourself so that you can become a true functioning human being again? I mean, how does that occur? Just a question.
Yeah, so from, and Diane, you can chime in too, but from what I've heard from Nick and seen in our patients is, you know, certainly our program helps a lot in that direction because it starts to correct some of that. Part of it also depends on how long you've been in that condition because permanent damage, you know, can certainly be there. However, the really cool thing is our body is designed to heal itself. It really is if we do the right things. And so we've seen some reversal of those kinds of things over time. You know, I think Diane, you spoke to this, or we had a conversation together about. I think it takes like 5 years altogether for the body to do a complete healing once we've started, you know, on a journey toward health.
Incredible. How does one relieve the side effects of like a liver purge? If you're going eating healthy, you know, I think that the first 4 days is usually obviously the most difficult in the program. Is that your liver? Is that a part of that? Is that your liver responding to better food? Do you know?
How long it takes?
Well, like I know that like the first 3 to 4 days, the average client would have some discomfort when it comes to not feeling so great at first because of the weight loss. I think that we experience at first. I mean, is some of that attributable to your liver purge, or is that? I'm just curious.
Let me jump in here, Victoria. One of the things here is.
Or is that a nurse question?
The first 4 days is when your liver is depleting all the glycogen. It's not necessarily detoxing yet. I mean, there's probably some of that going on with the water and stuff, but the reason why you feel a little cruddy is you made a fairly significant change to your diet, but you're depleting your primary energy fuel sources, or the glycogen. And once your liver gets empty, then your body kicks over into a different energy management system and it starts to burn fat. It's always burning some fat, but it starts to like turn on the refinery and burn fat like almost exclusively. And as long as you keep your liver empty of glycogen, the refinery will be on full tilt, right? And that's why we shrink so quickly. It's really cool. But over the processes of eating smaller meals frequently, eating very clean, you cut out all dairy, you cut out all wheat, grains, you're really simplifying your diet, and all the water that you're getting in, and hopefully you're working on the sleep and stress too. So all of that has an accumulative effect. You can see things pretty quickly to really, I mean, it takes a couple of years of living this lifestyle to really get your inflammation levels super low and to fully detox. I don't think it takes 2 years to fully detox. But anyway, the point, and ultimately we have to close up this first section. I love it. But the point of this main chapter is that there's some things that you were just given. It's like it's not your fault you were born in the family you were born into. It's not your fault that your skin color is the color it is. It's not your fault the way you look. It's not my fault. I'm really short. That's almost not the point, right? So this is what I have, and now let's go do it, right? Let's figure it out. Let's make let's take what we have been gifted and let's use it to our to accomplish and to build the communities and to do the things that we want in our life. And for me, it's interesting because most people would say that, you know, if you look at everybody in high school, the person in the wheelchair probably was the least likely to set world records and win Olympic medals and things like that. But I don't know who else did, maybe nobody, but I did. And so it's like, it just depends on what you want to do with the gift that you have, right? And so we take our bodies, we take the environments that we live in, and then we make decisions based upon our knowledge and our community to move us towards what we want. So
I just want to jump in and say, yeah, just two things. One is, the stats for you, Craig, is that you should be like an alcoholic and depressed right now. Seriously, like that's what the normal stats would be. So good thing. What I love the most about the first chapter and summarizing what everyone was talking about is it brings awareness to the present moment. And that's really what our role is as coaches, to interrupt the pattern of people like regretting all, like their past and then being worried about their future, and bringing them to this now point where they can live right now, because anything you're going to create in the future is right now. You can't create the future in the future. You can't create the future in the past. You have to get real with what it is right now. And like you said, the point isn't about it's not your fault. The point is about you coming to the recognition that this is where you're at and this is the facts, and now you can take the next step. That alone is so powerful to make it to where, don't you just want to invite a whole lot more people to be in these meetings? Like I'm taking your commission, Craig, to have 5 guests next week, like serious. And I'm not going to make the excuse of, oh, well, they couldn't make that time. Then I'm going to look for more. And guess what? The ones that couldn't make that time, we'll have our own little Zoom meeting at a different time. I mean, So thank you.
Yeah, when you guys can see what happens here. I mean, I love that we're in the book again. I wouldn't probably normally do that. I'm off doing other things, more important things, right? But we're back in, and we all are joined by, we're all human beings, and we're all not as healthy as we want to be, and we're all working on it. So we have those 3 things in common. And so when we open this book up, each one of us comes alive again. And we're like, oh yeah, I mean, Kim, yes, thank you, right? And we start to go, oh yeah, man, I'm sure glad to know about this. Unfortunately, it's like a little secret. People don't know about this. And that's one of our privileges, is to invite people to come. Hey, I got some hope over here. I got some things I'm learning that's really making a difference. Oh my goodness, you should check this out, right? So hopefully we'll have more folks join us next week for our health coach huddle, the TSFL University. We are going to go through chapter 2 next week, and I believe Martin is going to be covering that for next week. He's week 3. Barbara Cleary, I think, is second. And then I have a sign-up sheet where you can actually go and sign up to lead. I'm not going to lead each week, so I'm spreading the baton around to different people. But hopefully today will be a little of example of sort of what to expect. Kind of give us a premise, a couple of highlights, and then we kick it around and we have a ball. So thanks for joining me, and we will see you guys soon.